when we have some fascial pain, whether it's kind of like chronic fatigue stuff going on, or where you just kind of get achy in your body, doing some fascial rolling, some fascial juicing, I like to call it, is a really healthy way of keeping things moving. One of a yoga teacher I know, he taught me the phrase, motion is lotion. So, when you move your body in all sorts of ways, whether it's going for a walk or doing your yoga practice or anything, it's like lotion for your fascia, for your joints, for your tissues. And we can have some subtle lotion when we use some rolling on the top. So we're going to do that in a little bit. But first, just sit up straight and tall and take a moment to explore, how are you today? Where's your state of mind? If you're in Denver, the weather keeps fluctuating between being like spring's here and it's warm and then it gets cold. So, how does the fluctuations around you, whether it's temperature change, what moisture change, maybe the relationships in your life, the comings and goings of different people, how are you in your own steadiness? So close your eyes for a moment and sit up straight and tall. And when I say straight and tall, I don't really mean straight. Have the curves in your spine, the neutral curves in your spine. Take a moment to explore your sensations, how you feel. Remember, there's no rights or wrongs. There's no, I should be this or I must do that. Our practice is all about exploring and playing and becoming familiar and connected to ourselves. Finding the breath, see what it feels like to open yourself up to breathing well. My kitty cat's meowing in the background, so just know there's other creatures around our yoga practice too. So if you hear her, don't be alarmed. Just feel into the state of expansion in your ribs. Feel into that state of softness in your shoulders. Allow for a sense of ease come in through your face. And then when you're ready, place your palms together at your heart and bow in. Create an intention for your practice. What do you need today? What's available to you today? And then let's release the hands and come onto your back. So grab your little towel with you, your rolled towel with you. We're gonna work with it just after we warm up. So just in case, rolled towel with 3 rubber bands on the edges. It's like a little hand towel. We're gonna use this for some self-massage. All right, so come onto your back and take a moment to just be here now. Fall into the floor a bit. Let your spine relax. See if you can consciously notice what the difference is between lying down on the floor versus sitting up versus standing up. What's available in your body here? What spreads out? What becomes softer? And then let's stretch your arms overhead and find that deep length. Stretch your left side, stretch your right side. Come into that awakening in the rims of the body. How's your breath changing? And then draw the knees into the chest and rock a little bit, moving from side to side. All right, let's circle the hips. And then circle your knees the other way. Are you feeling that this is already just a little bit of a massage for your sacrum, for your sacroiliac joints? And then let's open the hips a little bit. So pull your knees away from each other and back in. And just notice what's available, range of motion wise. And remember, if you're working with a knee problem, you can always hold behind the knees instead of on top of the knees. So see what feels good.
All right, and then right knee into the chest, stretch left leg long, roll around your ankles, wake up your feet, turn your feet left and right, see what kind of movement that is available, stretch out the bones, and then change sides. Left knee into the chest, right leg long, and feel the awakening of your feet. Lengthen the crown, come into your full body, and then release and put your 2 feet on the ground. Okay, we're going to start this a little differently than we sometimes do. Let's take the rolled blanket and put it right underneath your sacrum. Okay, so you're just going to notice what kind of change happens in your sacrum and your low back when you have a little support, the teeniest of support underneath your sacrum. So if you're not sure where your sacrum is, it's that broad flat bone in the very bottom of your spine that joins with your pelvis, your ilium of your pelvis. And let's just rest here for a moment. And what does this feel like differently than being on the floor? Can you take a deep belly breath? And then keeping that where it is, go ahead and bring the knees to the chest and rock side to side on it a little bit. And you can, adjust where it is. Sometimes a little higher on your sacrum, sometimes a little lower on your sacrum. And just get a little teeniest bit of traction. All right, and then we're going to release and put our feet on the floor. Roll over onto your side. Actually, don't roll over. Just move the roll towel out of the way for a minute. Stretch your body out. Starfish your body open. Stretch through your limbs. Exhale, knees into your chest, around the spine. So let's warm up the spine a little bit here. Opening up into a little extension, arms overhead. Exhale and move into a little flexion. Knees and head come up. And then roll over onto your side and grab your towel. So I think you've all done this with me before, but I will review how this works. So we're trying to have some hydration, both in flexion, extension, and rotation. So we're going to put the rolled towel underneath our shoulder blades. Okay, so our head is on the floor. You can always support with a blanket if you want. And we're going to start this with our the roll towel high under our shoulder blades. And we're going to bend our knees, put our feet on the floor, and we're going to push off our feet to rock. Now, try to keep the pelvis really neutral because it can turn into a lot of pelvic thrusting where you can kind of like anterior and posterior tilt the pelvis instead of moving the spine. So a nice relaxed pelvis. And we're going to push off the feet to try to push our crown above us. So we're going top bottom in our rocking instead of pelvic tilting in our rocking. Once you have the rocking motion down, then we'll start adding the movement of the flexion, extension, and rotation. So to find flexion, gentle in the spine, hands come right over your chest, straight out. And then to find the extension, we're going to lift our arms overhead all the while we're rocking. We're not stopping rocking. And then arms come right over our chest again. And then we're going to turn our head and bring our arms over to one side. Stay rocking. And then lift your arms up and turn your head and arms to the other side. So it's very subtle flexion, extension, and rotation in the spine. And then as you're ready, go ahead and move the roll towel a notch down. So we're just going to go down the whole spine. So we're rocking. That's the most important thing that you are figuring out is how to rock. So your pelvis, your thighs should be pretty, it's a little work in your quads and in your hip flexors, but you want to have it be fairly neutral where you're just moving your spine up and down. So nothing's, we're not breaking the natural curves of the spine or the pelvis. We're keeping everything neutral and we're just moving the crown and tail up, down, by pushing off our feet. Flexion in the arms right over your chest, extension in the arms, lifting overhead, all the while rocking. And this may feel like, I hope it feels good to you. I hope you enjoy it. But if it feels like, what are we doing? What a waste of time. Please know that this is not a waste of time. That getting into all the little nooks and crannies of fascia along your vertebrae and the little muscles in between your vertebrae, hydrating them, this is really good. And, it affects more than just the spine too. When we get closer to where the diaphragm lives, It has a strong impact on the attachments of the diaphragm. It can impact your psoas. There's a lot that can be impacted by this. So don't feel like it's a waste of time. Try to enjoy it. So if you start to get fatigued in your quads, try to see what you can do to relax them a little bit so that the rocking of your spine is coming from momentum more than it is from anything pushing. And just keep moving down the spine as you go, trying a new place as you go. Arms are over your chest for flexion, arms lift over your head for extension. And you can pause in certain places where you're like, oh, that's a good spot. Then just hang out there. And then rotation, turning head and arms to one side, and then turning head and the arms to another side. So if you're having some subtle back pain, this is a really great thing to do, to just try to nourish your whole spine. Now, I'm not quite there yet, but if you're moving faster than me, you might be down to your low back already. So if you're a quick mover through this and you're down there, you might, when you get to your low back, you might feel, oh, I don't feel anything. And that's okay. At that point, bring your knees to your chest and do the rocking without your feet on the floor. And this will allow your low back to move into the bolster a little bit more. Okay. So find your spot. I always, there's a couple of spots in my back where I want to stay for a while. And if you find those spots, you can forego, if we don't have time to do the whole spine, we don't have time to do the whole spine right now. You can always take a little detour in this and find any place in your body that's feeling the need for this kind of action. Make sure you're breathing. It's so easy when we concentrate on things to hold our breath, and especially when the the towel gets a little closer to where your diaphragm lives, you might want to really accentuate the breath. And always notice, if you do this on the regular, if you have chronic spots in your back where you're like, oh, that spot's always a little tight, how can I move differently in my day to try to make sure I'm hydrating and making that place a little more fluid and a little bit more easeful if you find a habituated spot. So as you get to the lower back, and you may not be there yet, that's okay. But when you get there and you feel like you need to have your knees to your chest, it's a new rhythm to try to figure out that rocking. So just do your best to try to figure out how that feels. And the rotation might be a little differently. Sometimes I, kind of forego the rotation. Sometimes I stop rocking up, down, and I just rock left and right to try to get a little hydration in those vertebrae on the sides. So you explore. There's no rights or wrongs. There's only your own personal exploration. Okay? So once you get down to the top of the sacrum, and there's no rush, if you're like still in your shoulder blades, awesome. You can take your time doing this as much as you want. But once you get down to the top rim of your pelvis, where your top of your sacrum lives, you can put your feet back down onto the ground and do the rocking again. And you may feel like, all right, what's the point of the arms? There's not much going on here, but there is still. You may not feel it as intensely, but having the arms go from flexion to extension to rotation still impacts the sacrum. So let's stay in the movement pattern that we've been doing. And then when you get to the very bottom of your sacrum, so no rush. I have no idea where you guys are. I can't see most of you. But when you get to the bottom of the sacrum, or the middle of the sacrum, you can straighten your legs. And then in order to find that rocking, your heels are going to be on the floor, and you're going to kind of flex and point your toes to help you find that rocking action across your body. All right, so I can't see, I can only see a couple of you, and those of you I can see have stopped. So let's go ahead and bring our knees to our chest and draw into a little rocking again.
We're going to grab onto a strap and wrap it around your right foot. Okay. So go ahead and come into Supta Padangusthasana. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and lengthen here. Okay, finding your breath. Reaching that foot straight up in the air. Open up through the length of your spine, reach up through your foot, reach down through your hip. All that hydration we just did in the spine, let's see if we can move it into the backside of our pelvis and legs. So we're going to bend the knee into the chest and then straighten the leg out. Bend it and straighten it a couple times. All right, and then we're going to do the same with our toes. So flex your toes and point your toes. Flex your toes and point your toes. Okay, so just coming into any range of motion that's available to you. Can you feel fascia? You know, it has a very, the way I kind of feel it is that it's a little broader of a sensation than just muscle fiber stretching. All right, and then hang out in Supta Padangusthasana. We're going to cross the right leg over to the left. It's okay if your left knee is bent and your foot is on the floor. It's okay if your left leg is straight. We're going to cross that leg over and stretch the outer hip now. Move the femur bone away from the shoulder. Stretch open through your spine. Breathing well. And then come back up. And let's open the right leg out to the right. So if your left knee is bent and your foot is on the floor, you can try butterflying your left knee out to the left a little bit. Whatever action you're cultivating, try to keep the pelvis neutral so we're not rolling to the right. Breathe into the length of the spine. Soften your knee. Okay. And then go ahead and lift that leg straight up, 2 feet into the strap. Take the left foot now in there and take the right foot out. Right foot can either be on the floor or your right leg can be on the floor. What's going to help create a neutral lumbar spine and pelvis for you? Now let's try bending the left knee and then straightening the left leg. Try not to hyperextend. We're just coming into a little bit of movement. And then come into that extension and stay. And now let's move the foot. So flexing the toes and pointing the toes. You might have to have the strap kind of hooked on your heel a little bit to point your toes. Just fine. Notice if your knee's hyperextended. See if you can keep a little softness in there, opening up the fascia in your feet. All right, and then neutral. Extend the spine, root the hip down. We're going to take the left foot over to the right. You can hold the strap just in the right hand or both hands. And depending on what your other leg is doing, it might be down on the ground, your knee might be bent. It doesn't matter. Move your left hip away from your left shoulder, stretch through the big toe and the inner heel. Feel the length of your spine. Enjoy the opening in the outer hip. Breathe. Sometimes these more passive, gentle stretching where we take our time, it's a very different feeling than a real active posture in our practice. So can you enjoy it? Can you enjoy the feeling of stretching, the breath? All right, and then lift that leg straight up in the air. We're going to take the left leg out to the left. If your right leg is straight on the floor, stabilize with your core a little bit. If your right knee is bent, still stabilize with your core. So we're trying to not let our pelvis tip to the side. So we want to not let the leg go as far. If you open up that left leg too far, you're going to rotate the pelvis. So let's keep neutral. Okay, great. And then go ahead and come back up to center. Take the strap away. Starfish open. Stretch through your spine. Exhale, round. Roll over onto your side and come up onto your hands and knees. If you can't be on your knees, you can do cat-cow standing with your hands on a piece of furniture or a wall. The key here is to move the spine. So let your other limbs be supported in any way you need to as you round and arch the spine. If there's ever a pose that you should include in your practice, if your back is bothering you, it's cat-cow, right? It's a gentle pose. It's an easy pose. For most people, it's doable, and it just really can help support all the mobility in your spine. move it around. So just like when we were doing the towel roll, we did some rotation, we did some extension, we did some flexion. Now try to feel into the side bodies. So some lateral bending, you can turn and look out over your feet, maybe do a little snake kind of motion, fish swimming kind of motion with your shoulders and your pelvis, maybe some circles. All right, and then eventually we're going to turn this into dog pose. So curl your toes under, get your bottom of your feet to wake up, and then find your way all the way up to dog pose. Extending through your spine here. Feel your knees bend a lot so that you can feel that the extension of your spine is a little easier when the pelvis is stable. So when we push our legs straight, we often round our pelvis and we can't lift the sit bones very high. So bend the knees so you can lift and widen the sit bones and give that softness to the low back. Within that softness, stretch and lengthen the spine. Breathe into the full body. Feel the yielding of hands and feet. And then walk your feet forward and come to Uttanasana. So fold and bend your knees a lot. Same thing goes. We want to lift the sit bones, and that's much easier to do when our knees are bent. Okay, inhale for a halfway lift. I like blocks. I don't know if you like blocks, but I like blocks underneath my hands for a half lift. Extending the spine. Exhale and melt. Fold again. Push off your feet. Straighten your spine as you go. Reach your arms to the sky. Open your chest. Breathe deeply. So all that extension that we worked with when we were on the towel, can you feel it now? Open up into the extension of your spine. Lean back just a little bit. Soft knees, feet are planted. And then cactus, open your arms, stretch them back, and then release your forearms forward and touch your chin comes toward your chest. Inhale, rise up. We're going to reach one arm. So take your feet a little wider so you have a broad base of support. We're going to reach and extend into one side of our body. And then we're going to reach and extend into the other. And then two hands coming up. You can come back to hip width apart or take your feet wider, whatever feels good. We're going to find that sense of stretching into a side length. So grab onto your left wrist with your right hand and feel the extension in your side. Try not to pull and yank on your shoulder joint. See if you can get that broad fascial stretch feeling to move from the bottom rib cage up to the wrist, and from the bottom rib cage down to the foot. How's your breath? How's the neck? Are you relaxed? And let's change sides. Grab on, and if you have a shoulder that just doesn't lift well overhead, that's fine. You can do this without holding on to anything. You can just extend, with the arm that can lift up. Okay. The other thing you can do is hold at your shoulder and just kind of invite the body to awaken. All right, and then release. Okay, so move your spine around. I'm hoping it's feeling a little loose. Okay, and I want you to bounce. You don't have to jump, but sometimes the jiggle of your spine kind of rebounding from the earth can be really good. So if your knee doesn't feel good, Steve, I have no idea if bouncing is a good thing for your knee or not, but whatever's feeling good, see if you can let your spine. Yeah, if you want to jump, jump. Okay. Breathing. All right. Now just sense into Tadasana. Where's your spine in space? Breathe well. Inhale, lift your arms up to the sky. Bend your knees and float forward. Stretch the back body, tuck chin toward chest. Inhale, lengthen. Stretch your spine longer. Let's go ahead and take the right foot forward and the left foot back. Finding a lunge. Now for you, you might choose to either put your knee on the ground, or maybe you'll choose to keep your knee off the ground. So decide which kind of movement pattern feels best in your body. Breathing into the length of the spine, no matter what you're choosing. I feel the hip flexor stretch on that back leg. All right, we're going to take a twist here. So right hand is going to lift in the air. Left hand comes down onto the floor. If you want to go into a deeper twist, you can. Shoulder blades move away from the ears. Find the rotation in your ribs. See if you can use the obliques. How's your back thigh? Can you lift it up toward the sky? And then exhale and release the hands back down onto the ground. Rise up, crescent lunge. Bring your arms out or up or wherever you want them to be. Open up there's a little extension in your spine here. So we're not just lifting up. We might want to arch our back a little bit. See what's available, what feels good for you. Deep breaths. And then exhale. Back foot comes forward. Fold in half. Let the spine rest again. Inhale for a halfway lift. Let the spine lengthen again. Then take your other foot back. So now our left foot is forward, our right foot is back. Decide, do you want your knee to come resting down on the floor? Do you want your knee to be up off the ground? So, this is gentle yoga, so be as gentle in your body as you want to be. Okay? Support yourself however your body needs today. Feel the extension through your spine no matter what you're doing. Feel the openness of the hip flexor of that back leg. Breathe. Okay, let's find a twist here. You can keep your hand on a block. You can put your hand on the ground. Inhale and lift that arm up to the sky. Shoulders move away from the ears. Can you have that feeling that the twist is helping your spine open? Can you feel the attachments of the ribs to the vertebrae? Can you breathe into that space? Can you let the obliques do the work of twisting? Okay, back thigh lifts. Exhale, hands down onto the ground. Let's rise up, come to crescent lunge. Finding your breath here. Open yourself up. Now you decide, maybe your back knee wants to be on the floor. Maybe your hands want to be closer. You don't have to have your arms up overhead. You can. So what's available to you today? What's giving you breath, space in the spine? Are you stable through your center body? Is your core engaged? Does your back knee need to soften at all? Can you feel the yielding in your feet? How is your breath? Okay, great. Hands down onto the ground. Either come to a plank or to all fours, whichever's available to your body. Breathe well. Find the stability. Try not to lock yourself in. Let your body breathe. Okay, and then slowly lower yourself to the ground. Take your legs close or far. Experiment. What makes your body feel good? Come up to cobra pose. It does not have to be big. And then exhale and melt back down. Finding the breath. Coming on up. Coming on down. One more time. Opening your body up. Exhale. Relaxing. How are the movements of your spine feeling? Does extension feel good? Does flexion feel good? Does rotation, side bending? We're doing a lot of spinal movements. See what feels best to you. All right, come up onto all fours and swirl that spine around. Try to integrate lots of movement patterns. You can do some circles in your pelvis. Breathing. All right, let's go ahead and come up to stand. So you can come through dog pose if you want, taking your hands back, feet back. Maybe you want to just come to stand. So however you get yourself upright. We're going to find our way into Parsvakonasana. Find a little side body bending. So take your legs wide apart. Bend your knees, your front knee rather, and come into Parsvakonasana. Now, if you can, reach the arm overhead so you have this full length in the side of your body. So if your knee doesn't, so Steve, I don't even know which knee you hurt, but you can try this. I don't know if it's going to help you to have the support against your knee. You can also, if ever your knees are like not allowing for the lunges of these standing poses, you can come onto a chair and do, a pose where you're just a lot less weight bearing. So however is working for your bodies. Okay, so if you're ever having a day where your knees just don't feel like they can support you, making some different choices can be very helpful. All right, let's come on up and let's repeat to the other side. Okay. If you are going to use a chair, sit on the front of the chair. Parsvakonasana on the side. So sense into what your body's needing. So allow your hip to turn a little bit if you want. Move the shoulders away from the ears. Feel the feet ground. Open up the side body now. So stretch that arm overhead if you're able to, if your shoulder allows. Can you feel the connection from your back heel all the way through to your fingertips? What part of that fascial chain is missing? Deep breaths. You can be higher too. Your hand can be on your knee. You do not have to be super low in this pose to feel the side body length. Shoulders are away from the ears. Root your foot. That back foot, bend your knee and root it down and then rise up through the side. All right, come back up. Turn your feet straight. Okay, so pointing straight ahead. And we're gonna just side bend here. So be very mindful when we open up one side of the body, we have to engage the other side for a lot of these poses. So as we come, you can either keep your hands on your hips or a little less supportive, you can put your hand down and your hand up. So I want you to get the feeling that your core, your obliques are what are supporting you. Your legs are straight. Reach one arm up, left arm up, right arm up, whichever one side you went to first. And then come back. And let's come to the second side. So either hand on your hip or your hand on your leg. Can you feel the stability through the center body supporting your spine? How's your yielding in your legs? Okay, and then come back up. All right, fold forward here. Two legs are straight. Your hands can come down on blocks or your hands can come on the floor. Lift and widen the sit bones and let the knees soften. Melt the head forward and down, whatever feels really good for your body. Deep breaths. All right, we're going to come down onto the ground. We're going to experiment with the hips a little bit now. So this is going to look weird. Okay, so this is not your typical pigeon pose. I've been working with my knee too. My knee's been bothering me lately and been experimenting with a couple of things. And one of the things that I've come to realize is that when your inner knee or the kneecap, like the patella tendon, is bothering you, this is not, I don't know everybody's knee injuries, but if you come into pigeon pose, and you know how we always say you got to have your hips parallel, right? So I want you to forget that for a moment and just come to rest on your right hip. So start with your right leg forward, and I want you to rest on your right hip with your back leg open so that you're not trying to square your hips. And you might notice that your femur bone and your shin bone are on the same plane. They are equidistant to the floor. They're on the same plane. And I hope that nobody's got knee pain. Tell me if you have knee pain already starting here. I mean, Steve, you might just because you're like freshly injured, but if you have a chronic knee issue, I'm hoping that this isn't impacting you. So then I want you to start turning your torso and your pelvis toward the floor in little micro movements until you get to that place where, oh, my knee's about to feel this. And don't go to the knee feeling it place. Go right before it. Okay, and then I want you to stretch and lengthen forward in a pigeon here. So this is a very untraditional looking pigeon pose, but because we're way forward with our spine, it's not putting pressure on our sacroiliac joints. We're not overextending the spine. And I feel a really good stretch in my hip without my knee talking to me at all. So I'm hoping you're finding that same situation. Reverse pigeon pose has a beautiful aspect to it because our shin and our thigh don't have to have gravity pulling on them like they do in pigeon pose. So to me, this is a way to get around the intensity of that gravitational pull. Lengthen the spine. So we're hanging out here. What does it feel to just have a passive long hold for a moment? And because our pelvis is resting on the ground, or our hip is resting on the ground, we can be a little bit more passive than when we're in pigeon pose normally, where we're kind of hanging and we have to pull ourselves up to support ourselves. Okay, now to come out of the pose, I want you to roll right over onto your back.
So don't even come up, just roll onto your back, bring 2 knees into the chest and rock a little bit. We're going to repeat the exact same side in pigeon pose, the same side. We'll do the other side in a moment. Put your right foot on your left knee, and already you might feel that there's some more rotational work going on in your knee. So see what it feels like to make sure that your shin and your thigh stay on the same plane. When you lift your left knee up, you're going to want the rotational pattern is going to be deeper. So feel free, if that rotation is too much, to put your foot down on the ground, put your left foot on a block, to put your left foot on a wall, so that you can maintain the angle of your knee to be in a place that doesn't bother you. And if you can't get this to work, if you're still like, I just feel a little tingle in my inner knee, then cross your thigh over your thigh and bring your knees to your chest. And this is a very similar feeling than what we just had when we were on the floor in pigeon pose. So the goal here is to stretch our muscles, not torque our knee. So find the plane of movement that works for you. All right, and then go ahead and release. And we're going to go backwards through the other side. So we're going to come into reverse pigeon pose here on this other side. So left foot comes on right knee. And you decide, do you want your foot to be on the floor? Do you want your foot to be resting on a block or on a wall? Do you want to grab on to your knee? See what is working for you. What's available? Do you need to rotate at all in a different way to help your knee? And if you can't find this properly with your knee feeling comfortable, cross your left thigh over your right thigh and bring the knees to your chest. You will get a good stretch in your piriformis and in your other lateral rotators without having to torque the rotation on your knee. Extend the spine. Breathe deeply. All right, and then we're going to roll over to our side and come up, and we're going to repeat that pigeon pose, the weird pigeon pose. So we're going to start out on our left side. And you might find that your right leg can't straighten all the way. And that's okay too. The joy of being kind of leaning onto your side like this is that your back leg doesn't have to extend all the way. You can kind of come into a little bit of a softer position. The key here to keep this healthy for your sacroiliac joints is to lean forward. If you're up, look at me for a moment. If you're up like this, in this pose, don't do it. Stay down low. But if you're up like this is what's going to put torque on the SI joint, and which is why we usually want to have balance across our pelvis. So if we're going to do it in this different way, we need to keep the torso low so the sacroiliac joint is not getting compressed. Feel into the stretch of your hip. How does it feel? Does this feel good in your body? Breathe into the length of your spine. You can turn the right hip toward the floor to just the place that's perfect for you. So pre-pain, pre-knee pain. All right, great. And then we're going to come on up to sit. Come to a seated posture and grab a blanket or two to sit upon. All right, so keeping with that stretch in the hip that we just cultivated, we're going to turn it into a twist. So now we're going to take our left leg straight and our right leg bent. We're going to do this 2 different ways. Okay, so get up on as much height as you need to so that you're not rolled back onto your sacrum. You want to feel that the center front of your sit bones is what's making contact with the front of the blanket. That's your grounding place instead of rolling back into the pelvis. We're going to do an open twist and a closed twist. So your right foot is in line with your right sit bone or wider. You can take your foot out wider. If you need to, you can bend your knee less. See what feels good? And we're going to twist open. So we're twisting to the left, right hand on right knee,
Lift on the center of your sit bones and open up to the left. So our left leg is straight and we're turning to the left. So this is different. We're going to turn to the right in the more traditional version, but first just open twist. Drop the shoulders. Breathe deeply. Okay, and then come back to center. And now we're going to turn this into a cross twist. So cross the right leg over the left leg. Wrap your forearm around your knee. Take your hand behind you to help you support the spinal lift and start turning to the right. Drop the shoulders down. We're on the center of the sit bones. Find your breath. Can you feel that same kind of stretch through the outer hip? Breathe into the twisting action in your spine. All right, and then come back to center and change legs. Our right leg is going to be straight now. Our left leg is going to be bent. We can take the left foot out to the left more. We can take less bend in the left knee. You can make sure you're up on blankets. So you don't want to roll back onto your sacrum. You want to have enough support that you can lift your spine with the center of your sit bones on the ground. Right hand comes behind you. Left hand or left upper arm to the inner left knee. Drop the shoulders downward, open twisting to the right. So the right leg is straight, the left knee is bent. We're turning to the right. How's the breath? Can you feel the center of the sit bones? Can you feel an inner spiral of your thighs so you're not rolling your knee and your foot out? Okay, and then come back to center. And now let's get the hip involved in it. Cross your left leg over your right. Wrap your right elbow around your left knee. Use your left hand behind you to lift the spine. Lift up on the center of the sit bones. Crown reaches. Breathe your way into the twist. Now, I'm suggesting the forearm wrapping around your knee. If you're super flexible, you can take your elbow to the outer knee. I get worried about the elbow to the outer knee because it's very easy to push bone on bone and force yourself into a twist that your body's not ready for. Breathe your way here. All right, great. And then come back to center. Stretch the two legs out and bend your knees, come onto your back. Okay. Knees are bent, feet are on the floor. Take a moment to just experience the neutral spine again. We're moving our spine in all sorts of directions in our practice today. Just notice as you come back to a neutral place. Breathe into the place where the ribs and the spine meet. All right, so we're going to come into two different back bends, very gentle. We're going to start with a block underneath our pelvis for a bridge. If you feel like doing an active bridge, go for it. There's choices always. So you can do it passively with a block, or you can do it actively with no block. If your knees are bothering you, experiment with taking your feet a little wider on the mat, a little wider than hip width, and then ever so slight turn out of the feet. Not like first position in ballet kind of turnout, just a little bit of a turnout and lift the pelvis up. If this is if you're doing the pose actively. This will help your glutes to kick in a little bit more, which will hopefully take some pressure off your knee. Breathe deeply. All right, and then go ahead and relax and melt back down to the floor. So this one's going to be passive for everyone. Grab your roll over on your side, grab your two blocks. Okay. We're going to have heart bench. So the low block is either along the spine lengthwise or across the spine widthwise, but it's on its lowest height. I'm kind of short, so sometimes I turn the block across my shoulder blades. Sometimes I keep it in line. It just depends on how my body's feeling on any given day. But if you're super tall, you want to have the long block right along your spine. So one block between your shoulder blades, either cross or long, and the other block on the middle height right underneath your head. Now you're going to have to experiment. So not every day is perfect for a pose like this, and I'll give you a couple plan Bs if it's too hard. First plan B is to take the block crossways instead of long ways and bring the two blocks a little closer together. If that's still too hard, put a blanket on top of the whole thing so that when you lay back, you are, there's just a little bit softer support underneath you. So experiment with all the right places. And if you can't get comfortable, if you're like, this is just not working for my body today, then I want you to come off the blocks and instead come onto a rolled towel. So a rolled blanket. So however your body is happy today is how you're going to do the back bend. Choose how you want your legs to be. Bend your knees or straighten your legs. Butterfly, open your knees for Supta Baddha Konasana. Knock your knees. Experiment with all sorts of different planes of adjusting your pelvis and your legs to give you the most comfort for your back bend. Choose what you want to do with your arms. Maybe they want to be in some more extension and you want to reach your arms over your head. Maybe you want your arms straight out like a T. Maybe they're cactus. What's available to you? Arms down at your sides is another good one. And if the back bend feels just a little too intense, you can cross your arms over your chest, or better yet, put a blanket underneath each forearm so that you don't have to cross the arms, but you're not as low with your arms on the ground. So many choices to make. Breathe your way here. All right, let's go ahead and find our way out of there. We're going to move the blocks, come to lie down on your back, and bring your knees to your chest. So a little bit of flexion to counteract the back bend. You can first just rock, so maybe rocking left and right. And then if you want a little deeper flexion, let's first twist beforehand. So if you're having a desire for happy baby pose, we'll get there in just a moment. First, just put your feet on the ground and windshield wiper your knees left and right. Just twisting left, twisting right. Breathe as you move. Breathe as you move. And then when you're ready now, you can bring your knees deeply into your chest. Hold your feet. Happy baby if you want. Hold behind your knees if your feet are too far away. Hold just on top of your shins and rock, whatever is best for your body. And as we start to transition towards Shavasana, for the sense of, that we've been moving the spine and the hips in a lot of different ways, I want you to now think about either leg up the wall pose or legs up the couch, where you can just kind of stay for Shavasana after a couple of minutes of having your legs up. So you decide, and you can ignore me. This is the joy about being in your house. You can do whatever pose feels like it's necessary and needed in your body. So a couple of minutes of a restorative pose of your choice, leg up the wall pose or something else. And then we're going to come into Shavasana from there. So whatever choice you're making, why are you making it? What's the body needing? Do you need a full flexion where your whole spine is getting a big stretch? Do you want to just be much more passive and have a long Shavasana, or your legs up on a couch or a chair? Just find what feels good. Once you're there, can you melt? Is there a way for you to relax in the pose? If you're choosing legs up the wall without a wall, this isn't as relaxing as with a wall. So don't stay too long before coming towards Shavasana. As you let yourself melt in whatever posture you're in, and remember, if you're in leg up the wall pose, you can stay there for all of Shavasana if you want. But as you come into the easeful place that Shavasana offers, can you just feel your spine? So we did a lot of different movement patterns that affect the spine. What does it feel like to rest the spine on the floor? To melt your pelvis? To relax through your face? Soften and breathe. If you're at all chilly, grab a blanket and put it over you. Rest the breath. Shavasana is a really important pose for us to stay present in. Can you feel the surrender of your limbs, the ease in your spine, the soft belly breathing? Begin to deepen your breathing again. Maybe you're lucky enough to be brought out of Shavasana by a dog licking your face, as I see Joan is. Okay, so however your Shavasana comes to completion, can you have that sense of letting your body rest and breathe, enjoying ease, and find your way into movement and onto your side as you're ready. Come up to sit. Take a moment to enjoy your peace and offer your energy outward. Share your intentions, your attention with someone. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. Good to see you all.